Now, the SNP aren't the only nationalist party standing in the general election. In Wales, voters have the option of voting for Plaid Cymru as well, and their leader, Adam Price, is here. Thank you very much for being with us today. Now, you, of course, are the self-styled Party for Wales. Yeah. How can you really say that that's what you are when you're not even standing in every seat, because you're standing aside for some people in this Remain alliance, aren't you?
Well, you know, I think when you believe that, as we clearly do, that the choice that we're about to make in the next few weeks, whether we continue to leave or whether we stay within the European Union, we think remaining is absolutely critically important to our economy, agricultural sector, manufacturing sector. We'll have the heart ripped out of a Welsh economy if we leave on the basis of either Labour's Brexit deal or the Tories' Brexit deal. The right thing to do is to maximise that Remain voice in the next Parliament, and if by working together with other pro-Remain parties we can actually defend Wales's interests, then we'll always put Wales before party.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because at the same time Wales voted to leave the EU. I mean, you're talking about it as kind of maximising the Remain vote, but some of those Leave voters in Wales might see this as basically a bit of a stitch-up.
I talk to those Leave voters on a daily basis. You know, I have some of them, you know, within my own community, my own family, and you know, there are as many different reasons as to why people voted Leave as there are Leave voters. But I think some of it was a deep sense of exasperation, you know, particularly in Westminster politics, and that's probably got even worse over the last 3.5 years as we've gone round and round in circles. And when we look at the state of Wales, like the poverty, the endemic poverty, 200,000 of our children living in poverty, you know, it hasn't changed generation by generation. Labour government, Conservative government, it's always been the same. And I think part of the reason, not the whole of the reason for everyone, but part of the reason that people voted Leave is because they wanted change, right? Unfortunately, the change that's on offer through Brexit won't deliver the economic justice that people of Wales want. Will only happen if Wales finds its voice at this election. If we elect the biggest ever number of Wales's party, Plaid Cymru, MPs at Westminster, then whoever's in Downing Street, you know, jangling those keys on Friday the 13th of December, will have to listen to Wales like they've never done before.
You were talking there about having conversations with Leave voters, including some in your own family. Do you have family arguments about this stuff then?
Well, I think it's true everywhere, isn't it? I mean, Wales is as divided as every other part of the country by this question. I think it's important to actually respect each other. You know, you can civilly disagree. We haven't seen enough of that, I think, in politics recently. I understand, you know, people sincerely disagree in terms of the Brexit issue. But look, I think that we have to ask the bigger question as well is, how are we going to get change in Wales? Look, how are we going to move from the position where we've been bumping along at the bottom of the economic league table for generations? We've got a Labour government in Cardiff Bay, had for 20 years. You know, that hasn't actually changed things. That's why, you know, I say to people, the key message, look, putting your faith in the Westminster Party has never delivered change for Wales. It won't deliver it at this election either. You know, Labour in Wales is in government. It's not part of the solution. It's part of the problem. Look at the problems in our NHS in Wales. They mirror exactly. Actually, our A&E waiting times are way worse in Wales. Look at the scandal in terms of maternity services in Cwm Taf, etc. Right? Don't put your faith in the Westminster parties. They'll never deliver for Wales. Let's put our faith in ourselves. That's the only way that we'll get justice and change for Wales, if we start to vote for our own party.
Talking about, you know, putting faith in Wales and voting for your own party rather than the Westminster parties, are you not worried that by doing effectively deals with parties who are against Welsh independence, you're just prioritising Brexit above independence? Is that the calculation that's happened?
Well, look, this was an election that was precipitated by the Brexit crisis, so there was always going to be a dominant issue, and it has huge implications for Wales, and we have to be honest. You know, when people ask me, is it going to help Wales or is it going to hurt Wales? It's going to hurt us, right? And I saw, my father was a miner, right, thrown on the slag heap economically in the 1980s. You know, I've seen what deindustrialisation can do to Wales. I don't want to see any other family going through what we experienced in the 1980s. If there's any opportunity of halting it, look, we're starting a new decade in about 6 weeks' time, right? I want to see Wales rising up that economic league table. What we don't want to do is to harm ourselves. So we actually going 2 steps backwards. We need to be going forwards as a country. We've got great potential. You know, we were at the cradle of the old industrial revolution. We could be there with the green industrial revolution. We've got fantastic natural resources off our shores in terms of wind and wave energy, etc. Let's grasp that opportunity and not see this Brexit, which won't deliver anything for Wales, you know, harming us. Let's get investment. I mean, I noticed in the Labour Party's manifesto, they were offering over 100 billion, they claimed, to Scotland. Nothing like that for Wales. Why? Because Wales doesn't matter to the Westminster parties. You know, we are peripheral to the political agenda of Westminster, and the only way we can change that is if Wales finds its voice and votes for Wales's party at this election.
You say that Labour is part of the problem. Nicola Sturgeon just made it very clear that she would potentially work with Jeremy Corbyn in order to get him into number 10 rather than Boris Johnson. What's your position on that?
Well, look, of course, I mean, we were trying to impeach Boris Johnson a few weeks ago. I don't want to see Boris Johnson as Prime Minister, but neither do I think that simply installing a Labour government is going to change things either, unless and until we have a strong voice for Wales, Wales's party represented there. All those promises that they're offering, fewer to Wales than Scotland, of course.
Just to be clear then, what would you do? Would you just not have any talks at all with Labour if there's a hung parliament? Or would you just go in there and have some pretty clear red lines? What's the position?
Yeah, what we've said is that the best leverage possible is if we have the strongest block of Plaid Cymru MPs in our history, and that's on the cards, by the way, and then hold them to account, you know, use our influence on a vote-by-vote, case-by-case basis. So they have to come knocking on our door, on Wales's door, every day of the next Parliament. You know, we have one Welsh day in Westminster at the moment. I want every day in Westminster to be a Welsh day because Wales has found its voice.
What would be a good night?
Well, the good night will be having the strongest, greatest number of, you know, local champions.
What is that then? How many seats are you realistically looking at?
Look, I mean, I think that the important thing is that we have the best night ever in our history, not just for our party, but that'll make the headlines, won't it? You'll be talking about Wales along with all the other political programmes, which I won't mention. Because Wales will be on the agenda. And they're thinking, look, you know, Wales, the sleeping giant that is the dragon, you know, is rising. And we won't just have red lines. You were asking Nicola Sturgeon about red lines. We'll have red, white and green lines because the Welsh flag will be there in Westminster like never before.
We're running out of time, but there's one question that I'm keen just to ask you. It's about a recent interview that you gave where you said that Wales should get reparation for a century of neglect. We can just have a quick look at the quote that you gave in this interview. You said, "I feel very strongly that it's not possible to understand the predicament we're in without acknowledging the centrality of the fact that we had an extractive economy with a political power centre outside of our nation." And then you went on to say, "For most people, that is analogous, if not identical, to the experience of colonialism." Now, there's some people who've taken offence at this comparison with colonialism. What would you say to that?
When I first got elected as an MP, Sophie, and I was canvassing in my own valley, right, I knocked on door after door, and I saw miners, like worked with my father, some of them, right, strong men that couldn't get up from their chair. They were wearing oxygen masks, you know, and in that image, you know, that is the story of Wales. You know, a country that was rich in natural resources, that was plundered, the wealth was squandered, you know, forget about trickle-down economics. None of that money that, you know, the people that worked in our mines and our quarries, all of that wealth, none of it trickled up to Wales, right? So we're left in this state of poverty. And I'm not, you know, I get angry about that. I feel a great sense of sadness.
It's a colonialism reference, isn't it?
Yes,
that some have taken exception with.
We can disagree maybe about the words that we describe to capture Wales's past. The important thing is what's going to happen in Wales's future. And I don't want to see in the 21st century what happened to Wales in the 20th, a rich country that was left with a bitter legacy of poverty. We have huge potential. Let's seize it in the weeks ahead.
Adam.